Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Oru Kural. My name is Rahul. I'm joined with
Yadu. I'm a first year student at KCL doing biochemistry.
and I'm a master student at the LSC. I'm also an online coach promoting mental and physical well-being. Today's topic is going to be about men's mental health.
So what's your take on mental health?
I see my opinion on a spectrum. Far right, we have the ultra alpha male talk. Men shouldn't have emotions, men should be cold-hearted, ruthless, etc., etc. Whereas on the other side, you've got the far left, which I consider that men should be upset all the time. Men, we should pity ourselves, da 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 da. And I don't agree with either side. That's where I sit somewhere in the middle. I don't think there's a binary answer of 0 or 1, yes or no. I think we should look at it from a point of view, like a grayscale. Somewhere in that grayscale, I think is where we find the answer, and that's what I believe in. I do think men should have moments where they're sad, they're upset, they could be depressed. I think it's so important to not let those things define you.
That can't be a characteristic feature.
Exactly, and like seeking pity.
That's one of the reasons you should be.
Exactly. You can have problems. You're allowed to be upset, but you have to be proactive in trying to
try and make changes instead of like digging yourself deeper.
Precisely.
Can you explain your take on the alpha male mindset and why you don't believe it and how men use it to drive themselves?
There are definitely parts of both spectrum that you can take, but my issue is that it really emphasizes this lone wolf mentality. I think that's quite a regressive way of thinking. I think as humans we're innately social creatures who
require you need the presence of someone else.
Right.
Because you yourself can't take the burden of everything upon yourself.
Exactly. I 100% think there are battles with the demons that are between you and the demons. But I also think there are battles where you need your loved ones, your friends and family to just give you a little bit of support.
And also, in my opinion, it'd be less of a weight on them because it affects them less, but it also takes a bit of weight off you.
And I think within the Tamil community, that's something we're not great at because we don't want to be a burden to other people.
It's quite toxic in a way as well. This is a progressive mindset. Doesn't allow people to speak their mind out in certain situations. Exactly. Especially if you're not happy with something or you can't do anything else to speak out.
I'm sure you can agree. I definitely know I have is that I've sometimes not spoken about when I felt a bit depressed or down because I don't want to be a burden to my loved ones. That's the last thing I want to do, so I keep it within myself. That's something I used to do all the time, but as I've gotten older and what I've realized is these are the people that you need to tell.
They wouldn't ever ask you to tell their problems because they're on the assumption that you're fine. But if you need to speak out, I'm assuming they would be happy to listen.
Going back to the whole alpha male thing, you end up with a bunch of men who don't talk about their problems because they think that talking about their problems is not being a man. Because that's going against what an alpha male is. You're not a lone wolf anymore. Right? I've had a very close friend of mine who was going through a hard time. He literally didn't want to talk about his problem because he didn't like the idea of ever making it out and thinking, it's because of someone else that I'm in a good position. I want to do that by myself.
Or submitting yourself, putting yourself in a position where you're more vulnerable.
I think, especially for me personally, drawing from my experience, when I was at my worst was when my friends and family were the most. They've always been the most important people in my life. I always praise my friends and family. Something I'm most grateful for in my life, and it's because of what they did for me when I was at my worst. And I'm proud to say that. I don't feel like that's a embarrassment. I don't feel any sort of I'm not a lone wolf because I had people that helped me. No, I am proud that exactly. To me, it's more like we're a wolf pack rather than a lone wolf. That's the way I see it. I'm proud to say I was there for them when they were there. And I'm sure they're proud to say they were there for me.
It's reciprocated.
Yeah, exactly.
If you go through one tough time and you have those people, that support group in a way, to have your back on every moment and support you, then any future hardships that come your way become much more bearable and they seem much less phasing and much less difficult to deal with. So talking to people and getting that support, finding your people you're comfortable with sharing is vital.
100%.
Just to make this progression.
Yeah, and when we say this, we don't mean you need to go speak to loads of people, right? It's literally just a few.
Even like 2 or 3 people.
2 or 3, yeah.
It starts off with one,
Mm-hmm.
then as you get more and more comfortable, you can slowly reach out to more and more people until you've found whoever you need to find. Also, as you meet more people during the different phases of your life, so I've just started university. Now I've slowly made more friends, and I now become more comfortable with those friends, and they've become part of that support group that I have for myself. So it's never restricted to that one person forever and ever. But you can, as slowly as you build connections and talk to people, it'll be easier as well. Yeah, I feel like for me during lockdown, it was more isolated. You couldn't reach out to many people. So since then, I started talking to one of my friends. Then I built, and now it's become much easier for me to be open to everyone.
Right. Yeah.
I realized there's no shame in me being open. There's nothing they can do with that information.
So what are your thoughts with mental health within the Tamil community, and you yourself being a Tamil student?
If you have problems, you should try to speak out, but especially within South Asian and Tamil communities, it's quite difficult because of the stigma behind it and how people treat mental health, because our parents themselves have gone through much worse. So their viewpoint is how we have it now is far better, so we should be grateful for that. Yeah,
I think there is definitely an element of mental health almost being fictional.
It's more
among
it's
our
like
parents.
It's like a mindset rather than like a reality of how you're actually feeling.
Yeah, I guess our parents do have a point when they do say that there are people who get out. That's 100% true.
Yeah.
But when you're at your worst, that's the last thing
that you need to hit, because it's like their belief is you can instantaneously get out of that slump, that down period from hearing those words, when in reality it doesn't give them a solution. It's just another burden, like a weight added on top of that.
So I think one of the layers to men's mental health, especially within the Tamil community, that we should probably talk about a little bit, is alcoholism and the whole clubbing culture. Especially as you're a student, you probably can relate to this.
100%.
Like
The freshers, especially in the freshers era, lots going on. People aren't able to fully have the time to process it because it's such an active period. People just turn to drinking because that's what culture is. Like
you said, it doesn't give time for men to like process
what they're feeling.
Yeah, and I think it ends up spiraling.
Also, if you go to alcohol and clubbing, you may make more mistakes, make a situation worse. So there's a lot of consequences of doing that.
I am such a strong believer in someone who tries to advocate this as much as I can in terms of trying to denormalize alcohol and drinking, go to the pub as like the evening activity. There are so many other things that you can do.
It is okay to do it.
It is okay to do it, but
not like an active, regular activity.
I think there are so many other things that you can do with friends which would benefit your mental health exponentially more than drinking and going to a club. Is what I personally believe. I think you can do board games night. You can do different
movie nights.
Movie nights. You can play different sports. There's so many different. Like, even just coming to each other's house, like you just said, just chilling,
just talking, have a conversation.
There's so many things that you can do. That's not always drinking, and I think we need to normalize those activities, because I think it's almost, as a Tamil man, like juicing up
is the way. That's what you're meant to do.
And I think that needs to shift, that mindset, because I think it does a lot more harm than people think it does. So I think, kind of going on from that with mental health, one of the biggest solutions, or one of the actions I would recommend to anyone, but especially men, I think, is to start looking after and trying to improve their physical health. I think physical health has such a strong intertwined relationship with mental health. When I say you should exercise, you don't need to go to the gym and be a gym bro. I want to make that clear.
Just any form of exercise, anything that makes you happy, right?
Exactly.
Like for me, it was football. Football was my outlet.
That's
what made me happy. Also, social interaction through football.
Exactly.
I'm assuming you had that with the gym. As you went progressively, the more and more, you met more people, had more conversations. Or you also get to meet different people and just have a different viewpoint in life. Exactly. I think just whatever exercise you do, even if it can literally just be walking, like just go for walks. Right? I still do that. That's one of the things that I do. But just doing exercise, ideally on a daily basis, some form of exercise, even if it's just walking, I think makes
a drastic improvement
Yeah.
in your mental health. But I think also the self-belief, the resilience that you build from doing exercise is something that's not as spoken about, but I think it's a big deal. A lot of people, when they look at my transformation, they're like, "Oh, bro, that's so cool!" Like, really inspired. But it's hard for me to explain to them that more than the physical change, it's the mental change that like has truly changed my life.
Yeah.
And I can't really show or explain that to someone via social media, but people that know me personally, that were there, like the friends we were talking about,
they've seen it.
They can see
they've
it.
experienced it.
Exactly.
And seen like a shift in you as a person.
Yeah.
Like it's a development.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that conquering of demons and improving my mental health, that I think is so much more valuable than, like, don't get me wrong, the physical change, I'm not going to say it's not.
It has benefits.
Yeah.
But that also contributes to your mental side.
Yeah, I think that the mental change is what I appreciate the most. So like one of the things with me starting off at the gym was, lifting certain weights. And it wasn't possible when I started, but over time you get stronger and you start doing it. You build that self-belief and confidence that, I can do this. And that aspect, like that resilience and that self-belief and confidence, trickles into other aspects of your life, whether that's your social life, whether that's your career. Like, I think the benefits of physical health is quite underrepresented by social media. Everyone's always just, flabs the abs and all that, big muscles. But I think all the benefits that you get mentally
is even greater.
Which is why even today, the first thing I do is speak to my friends. The second line of defense is do some form of exercise. Right now I'm doing martial arts, but any sort of exercise.
Even if it's not exercise, like a hobby. Doing other things, like I know people who DJ in their free time instead of, or make music. Just do any outlet. Playing the guitar for some people is probably the greatest.
You said music.
For me, like I listen to, I have certain artists I listen to, like Dave. So it makes me put like a different perspective of life when I'm feeling down. So like he's got a whole album called We're All Alone in This Together. That alone, he himself in such a major position, so high in life, has certain problems, and that's what makes it so relatable. So that's what I use, and I also use study as well, just anything that can take my mind off not just to distract myself, but productive.
So you study as a way to...
Sometimes. If I have stuff to do, then I'll study.
Aren't you the perfect child?
I studied. I just made productive use of my time, just to instead of taking my mind off it, instead of not forgetting about the problem, but just doing a productive way of taking my mind off it. Kind of relates to your gym point of you can see the progression. So by doing a task, I can see what I've done, and it's more, you get a boost of serotonin from just completing something, just see something go off.
Looking back, I think 3 really important traits that I've developed and I think are quite important in terms of improving your mental health are resilience, empathy, and gratitude. Starting with resilience, I think, again, things don't suddenly become easy. Right? It's not like my life is flowers and rainbows. That's not how it works. Bad things still happen. Inconveniences happen. What you learn is to deal with those things better. Something that bothered me 5 years ago doesn't bother me now, right? I've learned to be resilient.
You know what we were saying before about the whole, other people are in worse positions than yourself. That I kind of use that as a way of making my life I can do this. I can deal with my problems.
I think building a level of resilience to dealing with things is important because I think that's part of why people do feel lower than others, because they're not equipped with the mental resilience to combat the smallest tasks become really difficult, and that's part of life. There was a point in time when getting out of bed was very difficult for me. I struggled with that, and now I can get out of bed and it's fine. But I still have sometimes I don't want to get out of bed.
Days, the odd day where you just don't want to.
It's completely okay. So, but a characteristic a trait that is built to beat those kind of days when you do feel low is resilience.
Reality is not every day is going to be perfect. You're always obviously going to have that day where things go bad, things don't go your way. But it's just keeping your head high, It's
Exactly.
empowering through. It's
Exactly.
making the next day better.
Yeah.
So yeah, as long as it doesn't become a repeat cycle, then you should be okay.
I think we've covered quite a lot of points there. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Yadu, for coming on.
Thank you so much, man. I'm glad I've had this conversation today. I hope that more conversations can start as a result. Me being a young Tamil fresher as well, are able to come out and talk about the problems.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do with Oru Kural. We're trying to create this safe space where we can push boundaries and have those uncomfortable conversations. We do have a call out form where you can put in your suggestions on topics that you would like us to discuss, or even if you feel like you would like to come on and speak, that's also possible.
Also, if you're in crises, there are helplines which will be linked down below in the description.
If you ever do need advice or you just need someone to talk to, my Instagram and TikTok is rahul.rajakuma. You can just drop me a message and I'll be more than happy to speak to you. And you can also obviously message the Oru Kural page. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe.
Nandri, Walaka.